Number 1. The Flying Heads of the Iroquois. The Iroquois have lots of terrifying folklore. The flying heads look as if they are straight out of a horrifying dream. Personally, they remind me of the flying skulls in the Shadow Temple in Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The Iroquois had many different stories about these evil creatures. They varied in size, from tiny to massive. The origins of the flying heads vary greatly from story to story. In some tales, a flying head is created from a violent murder scene. The severed head of the victim grows to enormous size, or the head emerges from a mass grave. In others, a human is transformed into a flying head after committing an act of cannibalism. In many stories, the origin of the flying heads is not remarked on at all. They are primordial monsters whose nature is to eat humans, but occasionally have other motivations of their own. These disembodied creatures have fiery eyes and long, tangled hair. Number 2. The Arapaho Cannibal Dwarves. Many Native American tribes have folk tales of small magical men or creatures. The cannibal dwarves of the Arapaho tribe are particularly interesting as much as they are terrifying. They are known as dangerous man-eaters, and the Arapaho tribe considers them their enemy. These little people are described in some circumstances as having superhuman strength. Some stories describe them as having the power of invisibility, while others describe them as being hard to see, simply because of how fast they move. From story to story, the description of the cannibal dwarves changes, but they are usually said to be the size of children, dark-skinned, and extremely aggressive. In order for these creatures to reach the afterlife, they must be killed in battle. This would explain their aggressive temperament. It is also believed that these little people killed simply for the fun of it. Interestingly enough, many versions of their story describe the race of cannibal dwarves becoming extinct by a bloody war with the Arapahoes and other neighboring tribes. Perhaps this group of cannibal dwarves was a real ancient people, and these stories open up a relic to the past. These dwarves may have been powerful, but they were not very bright. According to one story, published in the Handbook of Native Mythology, a warrior was captured by a cannibal dwarf. So to delay the inevitable, he tried to strike up a conversation. Noticing dwarf hearts hanging on the walls around him, the warrior asked what the gruesome organs were for. The dwarf told him that they were the hearts of his relatives, who were out hunting at the time. The warrior then pierced the hearts one by one. The dwarf wasn't sharp enough to realize that piercing those hearts would kill his family. With a final stroke, the warrior pierced the heart of the dwarf who was holding him captive last, and the dwarf who wanted to eat him immediately dropped dead. Chino, the Ice Giant. Many tales describe this beast as a Bigfoot-like creature. The Ice Giant was once human but committed a horrible crime, and his heart was turned to ice. In many legends, the crime he committed was cannibalism. The man's frozen spirit is trapped within the body of a troll-like monster that kills and eats any human that crosses his path. The size of these creatures are giant, as they can be even taller than trees. The ice giants are emaciated, have giant fangs, and are always hungry. It is rumored that if you just hear the scream of one of these horrible beasts, that you can die. The winter time is when these terrifying beasts come out. The ice giants, or chinos, get their dark powers from a human-shaped ice crystal in their stomachs. If wounded, they can regenerate limbs and other body parts. If the ice crystal is removed from the stomach, they return to human form, and the spirit is saved. One way to defeat these monsters is by feeding them salt, because it melts the ice figure. The Owl Women of the Yakima. The Yakima describe a race of monstrous owl women that once lived in caves. They hunted all the nearby tribes, but preferred the flesh of children. They were described to look like a cross between a woman and an owl, as the name implies. If human prey was not available, they fed on just about any meat, which included snakes, rats, lizards, and frogs, which were considered inedible by the Yakima. These women were considered to be one of the most dangerous beings on Earth. When one of these owl women drowned, Her eyes were used to create the entire species of the owl. Owls in many Native American cultures are used to represent death. The Apaches have a similar story of a man-eating owl. More recently, eyewitness reports from southern Texas and Mexico report an owl human right before ominous events or as an omen of death. Could these people be seeing the owl woman as described by the Yakima? Uktena, the horned serpent. According to Cherokee legend, these dragon-like beasts were once humans but turned into serpents to get revenge upon those who wronged them. Much like in European legends, tales were told of men proving their bravery by facing the creatures in battle. The first Uktena was said to be transformed from a human man in a failed assassination attempt on the sun. Most other Uktena tales have to do with Cherokee heroes slaying one. They are malevolent and deadly monsters. Anthropologist James Mooney describes the creature. Those who claim to have seen the Uktena say it is a great snake, as large around as a tree trunk, with horns on its head, and a bright, blazing crest like a diamond on its forehead, and scales glowing like sparks of fire. It has rings or spots of color along its whole length, and cannot be wounded except by shooting in the seventh spot from the head, because under this spot are its heart and its life. The blazing diamond is called Ulun Suti, or transparent, and he who can win it may become the greatest wonder worker of the tribe. But it is worth a man's life to attempt it, for whoever is seen by the Uktena is so dazed by the bright light that he runs towards the snake instead of trying to escape. As if this were not enough, the breath of the Uktena is so pestilential that no living creature can survive should they inhale the tiniest bit of foul air expelled from the Uktena. Even to see the Uktena sleep is death, not to the hunter himself, but to his family. The stiff-legged bear. In many legends, this elephant-sized bear had a strong liking of human flesh and is a ferocious predator. It makes an appearance in many different tribes. In the legends, it says it was a very shaggy animal that would lean on trees and rocks to rest because it could not bend its legs. If the creature were to lay down, it could never stand up again. It is said that it had teeth long enough to puncture 7 hunters, and that no arrow could kill the beast because its skin was as hard as a rock. Many anthropologists speculate that this legend may be derived from the woolly mammoth. The Native Americans may have tweaked its description through oral storytelling after thousands of years of its existence. The fact that it is a bear could come from the fact that the giant short-faced bear used to roam North America until they became extinct around the same time as the mammoth. It is also believed the myth could have derived from Native Americans unearthing mastodon skulls that have large, sharp teeth, even though they were herbivores. The underwater panther, Mishipeshu. This beast is one of the most important of several mythological water beings among many indigenous peoples of the northeastern woodlands and Great Lakes regions. The underwater panther was an analogam of features for many animals: the body of a wild feline, often a cougar or lynx, the horns of a deer or bison, upright scales on its back, occasionally feathers, and parts from other animals as well, depending on the particular myth. Underwater panthers are represented with exceptionally long tails, occasionally with serpentine properties. The creatures are thought to roar or hiss in the sounds of storms or rushing rapids. Mishipeshu are said to live in the deepest parts of lakes and rivers, where they can cause storms. Some traditions believe the underwater panthers to be helpful, protective creatures, but more often they were viewed as malevolent beasts that brought death and misfortune. There are few stories of encounters with this great beast. A Jesuit missionary named Claude de Blanc told a story about 4 Ojibwa Indians who embarked on a journey to the home of a Mishipeshu to take some copper back to their home and to use it to heat water. The very second they pushed off and backed into the water with their canoe, the eerie voice of the water panther surrounded them. The water panther came growling after them, vigorously accusing them of stealing the playthings of his children. All 4 of the Indians died on the way back to their village, the last one just surviving long enough to tell the tale of what happened in his final moments before he died. Kamazats, or death bat. This creature originates in traditional Mexican culture and dates far back as some of the Mayan myths. Legend has it that a small group of Maya worship the death bat as an anthropomorphic figure with a human body and the head and wings of a bat. Many Native American cultures venerated bats, which are almost always associated with darkness and death. Legends of a similar fearsome Batman creature have circulated widely throughout Latin America. Legend has it that pregnant Native women in Mexico would offer sacrifices to the bat gods to ensure a healthy baby. Its traditional dwelling place, a dark cave, had marked similarities to a woman's womb. Pregnant women would venture to a specific cave in Veracruz, Mexico, to offer sacrifices which they believed would ensure a healthy delivery. Some early American legends from pre-Hispanic Mexico portray the death bat as an otherworldly creature with links both to Earth and the underworld. He operates on a bridge between the heavens and the underworld and wields deadly powers. South American Arawaks believe that the death bat would carry off villagers that went out at night. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a thumbs up and share. Also, comment something interesting. Oh yeah, and one last thing. Stay spooky, my friend.